Hello, everyone. We are very excited to meet you for today's webinar, a part of the Summer Adtech virtual event. I hope the video, the sound, everything is set and perfectly ready for our today's talk dedicated to the past, present, and future of DSPs. This talk was prepared by LiquidM, and actually maybe a short introduction about us, the people you will be listening to today. And so the expert of today's panel is our Lars Radmacher, a VP Sales and Marketing. Lars has an extensive experience in programmatic industry of 10 years. He has worked for both supply side, the demand side, and also combined with the extensive background in both tech and product. He's really the person to address any questions about the DSPs, because he has been there to see the commencement of DSPs as well as the development. And then I will be here, Tatevik, or you can refer to me as Tata, to guide you for today's webinar and to assist Lars, and as well as help you with a Q&A session. So actually, let me post quickly in the chat that anytime that you have any questions, you can refer to them in our chat, or actually post them also in the Q&A window. So that we can always come back to them after the end of the presentation and provide you the best possible answer to your questions. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. Maybe one last final words before Lars starts with the in-depth information about the timeline and the technical details. It's a small note for some people who might not be might be new to the industry or might be new to Adtech. So what are DSPs? Demand-side platforms are pretty much a software as a service solution for advertisers to be able to reach their audiences whenever they want and however they want across multiple geos, formats, channels, using targeting solutions. So pretty much it is software, it is a bundle of solutions that helps advertisers to automate and optimize their media buying activities. And that's to set up the ground, and then Lars will take off with the in-depth info.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Tata. Welcome to everyone. As Tata mentioned, I am for quite a long time in the Adtech industry. Since around 4 years, I'm with LiquidM DSP. So I think we are in a very good position to speak actually about the history, I would say, of the whole digital advertising, programmatic advertising, basically the very past, I would say, the recent years, the last years actually, the DSP today, also to let you know what's important today actually, and then move on to the future of the DSP from our point of view. And I'm pretty sure that this is also in line with everything you see. So from the signups, we know that with us we have today, and everyone is really welcome from other DSPs. I would call them friends, not competitors, because we're all in the industry for quite a long time, know each other. We have media agencies here, we have tech providers, we have direct brands. So everyone is kind of in the loop today. And hopefully we are on a level where everyone agrees. If not, we are open to talk about everything. This is why I'm here, why Tata's here with me today. And basically in the end, as Tata said, we have the open Q&A and discussion round. Yeah. So let me start with the past. The years actually I'm going to use here are not like set in stone, I would say. So we go roughly through the decades, I would say. So whenever there's something very special, I will talk about it. If not, I will just continue. And you will also see this also mixed with a lot of personal experience I had over the past, I would say 14 to 16 years in Adtech already. So the very past of digital advertising, we start very early. Yeah? So we select the year 2000 already. This was basically where the World Wide Web came up. Everyone got access to the internet. And with the first, I would say, premium publishers, there was also an interest to move advertising, digital advertising into the space of publishers, publisher inventory. So the brands actually started to have an interest. And we call this time the era actually of ad servers. So, the first systems came up in order to run basically ads within the internet on websites. And from what we have seen and also personal experience, it started pretty early already with publisher side systems typical publisher ad servers, which simply had the goal to run ads which has been shared and campaigns which have been shared manually before by the advertiser in the connected inventory. Yeah. And here in the area of the ad servers, actually at the beginning, as I said, publisher ad servers, but additionally after a short time, also the first advertiser solutions came up. So there was a pretty clear split between both sides. And what became most important after a while were so-called Adtechs. So while at the beginning, campaigns, IOs have been signed between, I would say, advertisers, agencies, and publishers. So an IO was basically signed, creatives were sent over to the publisher side, and the campaign management team of the publisher had to really figure out how to display best basically the ad within the website. So this was all manually actually done, was a lot of effort as we did not have any, I would say, standards besides something like HTML perhaps and JavaScript and CSS and stuff like that. But it was always a lot of hassle actually to really implement and display everything in the websites. And then with the advertiser side solutions, basically, the so-called Adtechs came up. So the idea was simply to say that on the advertiser side, the advertiser, the agency also want to have some impact basically about how to steer the company, the campaign actually, which was related to something like frequency capping, a little bit of granular targeting. And in the end, the advertiser also want to avoid to always update campaigns and creatives actually sent manually over to the publisher side. Yeah? So a lot of manual effort at the beginning. With the Adtechs, it became a little bit easier. So just tags have been exchanged with different publishers instead of always creatives itself, images, for example, and click-through URLs. And what also became very interesting, of course, for the publisher side, were the increase of fill rates. So the inventory was available, but of course, especially if you have been a smaller publisher at the beginning, there was not such a direct interest into your inventory. So does mean we looked for ways to increase the fill rates by implementing waterfalls, different networks or whatever, just to get more ads into the websites. And as more basically fill we had, as more important became the CPMs. Yeah. So what we started to do here, again, a lot of manual effort, mainly on the publisher side quite often, was to implement chains basically of ad tags, redirects. If there was no fill, basically just redirect and always avoid passbacks and empty impressions, because this means simply to lose money. So what we started to do here was already a little bit after the first initial, I would say, manual effort. We tried to find technical solutions and we built a lot of stuff. So like redirect chains, waterfalls, based on pricing, we used key values, tags and stuff like that, just to increase the fill rates and CPMs. So this is pretty what we have seen at the very beginning when we started digital advertising. And then based on the needs on both sides, actually, about control, about automatization, we started basically around 2010, in reality a little bit earlier, 2009, it's like the common knowledge here. We started with RTV, so real-time bidding. So here in this time, we started to automate more. So this means it became easier for, let's say, the buy side, for the demand side, to get access to inventory, but also together with the tools we had, there was a partial loss of control, actually for both sides, we'll speak about later. So on the onset of RTB, basically, the base for everything was open RTB, standard by the IAB, as you know. We again had a clear split between SSPs and DSPs, supply side systems to, I would say, bundle inventory and define how much money you want to take at least, how much data you want to share. And on the other side, we had the DSPs coming up. So demand side tools and solutions focused on the needs of the advertisers and brands, actually. The same time, also, of course, as everyone knows, ad exchanges came up, something in between bundling inventory, giving access through marketplace and so on. But let's follow basically the basic split. We always had publisher side, SSP, supply side platforms, and demand side platforms, DSPs. What also started, I think this was also quite common, whenever we had new formats, for example, first, of course, everything started with display, then video came into the game, later on other formats like native, rich media and so on, but also we had different channels. So it all started with desktop and there was a big race basically of mobile inventory. Today, as you know, we have other formats we'll speak about later again, and other channels like connected TV and audio and whatever. So basically there was a lot of room for niche solutions. So while we had the standard of RTB, which was the base for any kind of communication within the real-time bidding, a market basically still niche solutions, like for example, the beginning of LiquidM. Yeah, you could say the beginning is more than 10 years ago. It was more than 10 years ago in the mobile space. Yeah? But of course, basically niche solutions had their place and were heavily used. Yeah? And what happened next, basically, after we had RTB in the market, was that here we focus on the last 4 to 5 years. Yeah, speaking about the recent past, it simply means while we have seen that the standardization helps the programmatic ecosystem, does mean we basically achieve what we want to achieve. We ensure that the communication between supply side and demand side got easier over time. There was at the beginning less need for communications because we just said, okay, it's an open market. We just open inventory and we say the minimum price we want to get basically is defined on the publisher side. So what kind of full control, that's what we thought on the publisher side. And the demand side was about to get additional reach. Yeah? So basically this tool itself, the framework worked pretty nicely. Yeah? But of course, after a while, also the publishers realized, okay, I want also to ensure that basically there's no cannibalization between my direct contacts I have within agency and brand. I basically want to ensure that I can maintain those direct business like I had in the past, let's say 5 to 10 years ago when everything started. Yeah. I want to use the new technical framework we have, the infrastructure, and I want to extend it to also more granular, I would say, targeting from the demand side and a little bit more control and flexibility on the publisher side. Yeah? So we had those increasing standardization of the advertising system, basically. And what became much more important was really to leverage data. Yeah. So we have seen that both sides had an interest to share data, to talk about it, but there was also a little bit loss of control. Yeah? So the idea was simply, of course, a publisher having first-party data doesn't want to just to throw it into the market. And then there was also the fear that on the demand side, people will start just to track the user, flag the user, and get the data for free and just target the next campaigns on them. Yeah? So data-driven targeting became an, I would say, essential need in the whole industry for both sides, actually, because we want to use the raising infrastructure. But at the same time, there was a loss of control on both sides again, because on both sides, fraudulent players came into the market. And this means, of course, the advertiser wants to ensure that the inventory he's going to buy and bidding on is really the true premium inventory he wants to run on. The data is real, actually. Yeah? On the other side, the publisher wants to protect the user itself on the website because the user is the biggest asset the publisher has. So with the upcoming fraud, actually, we needed tools on both sides. And the tools needed here were simply the quality providers. So does mean it is basically, we have seen over the last 4 to 5 years that as bigger the market became, as more standards we had, as more complex it also became. Yeah? It's all about missing control and missing trust. This is what we have seen in the recent past, actually. So quality providers here, I mean something like to parse creatives, for example, the media trust, or to ensure that you don't buy fraudulent traffic driven by companies like, for example, forensic. And just to sum up, basically, this is a path we have seen. So from, I would say, a lot of manual work at the beginning, we started to implement technical infrastructure, mainly based on RTB, so real-time bidding, actually. And as more we want to do, as more complex and complicated it became, and as more important became basically what we have to focus on today. Yeah? So this is the path we have seen so far. And in the end, what happens next, of course, is the present. So a DSP today, yeah, the big question is always, what do you need to focus on now, today? And while we had at the beginning, basically, I would say at the beginning, perhaps like 5, 6, or 10 DSPs worldwide, yeah, of course, today, I would say we have 50, 100 or even more systems in the market. And it became very, very easy to build your own bidder. So a simply bidder today, you can just go to a certain website and click it, basically buy it for $250 a month or whatever. And then your bidder is ready anyhow. And also today, of course, a big part of the market is that there's a whole arbitrage business. People try to buy inventory to enrich it a little bit, or just to fake it, to rename it or whatever, and to resell with a slightly higher price. And of course, a good DSP today is not just a bidder, it's much, much more. So what we have seen over the last years, and of course it's going to ramp up dramatically over the next time, also based on the environmental environment we have right now, is the whole market consolidation. It is a very complex environment with very high competition, but the consolidation already started. And what we have seen here is basically that there is a need to move away from basically being a niche player. So the demand side basically wants to use only, I would say, one tool to access any kind of channel, one tool basically in order to ensure that all the formats can be run. It should be one single interface where the team is trained on heavily, because otherwise you end up with 5 to 10 DSPs. Your team is always busy. This did not change since the early beginning of advertising. It does mean one tool should really provide everything you need. And the topics here, just to sum up again, first of all, today, what's most important, be omnichannel. So still there are some environments where you could say, okay, it makes sense to be focused on something. Let's talk about addressable TV, for example, connected TV. Or let's talk about digital out of home. It could make sense still to be one of the niche players here, one of the unique platforms with, I would say, technical advantage. But in the future, for sure, this will disappear. It simply gets more and more easy in the future based on the standards we implement in the market to adopt to the needs, to simply include more different types of supply, for example, support all the formats, because we have all the standards which came up over the past years. So omnichannel for sure is one of the key points we see today. So we, for example, moved away from being a mobile player from, I would say, around 8 to 10 years ago when we started early. We moved into desktop already like 4 to 5 years ago. And today we are positioned also as an omnichannel player. This is very important. Of course, we're still missing some of the supply channels, but this is like ongoing work. In the end, we know basically today, it's pretty tough, I would say, to get a chance in the market if you are too specialized to a certain format or to a certain channel. And speaking about the formats, let's say basically like 4 to 6 years ago, I think it started, or let's say 6 years ago, it started always video. Video became a big thing in the European market, the US market, for example, LATAM a little bit later. And video for sure, programmatic video is one of the hottest topics we have seen. So we speak about it for a very long time. To be honest, it took, as usual, I would say, in the European but also US market, we spoke about it. There was a big hype actually about the next format. Video is a new big thing. The same for mobile 2 years ago. It always took a little bit long before it became reality. But video for sure is one of the hottest topics today. And after video, what we have seen on our side was native. So native was a format which was recently opened, I would say. Recently, I mean something more like 4, but not 10 years ago for programmatic, actually. We also have a second session tomorrow, just speaking about native. If you want to sign up, you can still do so. You're welcome to do so. What's very important today, if you want to run rich media, if you want to run HTML5, if you want to run video, basically, if you want to run display, you don't want to take any kind of dedicated DSP. It's simply not needed anymore. We have all the standards you need. The standards are in the market. All the premium SSPs are supporting those. There is no big need for a very detailed communication anymore. So it is quite technically, I would say it's quite complex, but you don't see it anymore. There's no need to go to the very specialist, for example, for video. Just go to your partner DSP and run whatever you want. The second point, of course, is the whole topic today about trust. What do we mean here? It's about transparency. So everyone knows the reports, also just recently, I think yesterday, 2 days ago, about how is the money spent on certain networks, Google or whatever. You know the topics for years already, and the big question is always, first of all, what kind of inventory as a DSP do I have connected? How granular can my clients target the inventory? So how much control do they have about what's going on? How transparent basically is the inventory I buy? How transparent is it about which shares go from my marketing budgets? And as you know, today in a normal world, you always have to take a margin. Yeah? It's a little bit slightly different, I would say, if you're offering different technology providers in the chain. Of course, you can speak about to reduce fees or whatever. In the end, everyone needs to make some money. The big question is how much. And here we know today you have to be transparent. So what we do, for example, we have transparent business markups. So this simply means you have some meter spend, you can always control, and then there's a transparent business markup, which is also the invoice and everything. And this is basically what we focus on. And in the future, also together with Smart, basically our head company, we want to move much more in this direction, also when it comes to report and insights and everything to fully understand the complete spend chain. What's also, of course, very important, talking about trust today, it's brand safety. Yeah? So it gets more and more complex in this world. We try to do everything in real time based on the technical infrastructure we have. In the end, we need to ensure that the brands run in brand safety inventory, because everything is available in the internet when it comes to content. We want to ensure that it's only on safe inventory, I would say. So this could be like segmentic targeting. This could be based on keywords, which are blacklisted, for example, or excluded. This is about brand safety providers, which are in the market, most often together with providers for other kind of measures. And speaking about one of the most important points we see today on the demand side, of course, is viewability. So it's not just to know basically on what kind of inventory you're going to spend your money and your budget. And of course, you need to ensure that match with the needs of your brand directly. It's about viewable impressions. So of course, it's nice to know that you're running a certain premium website, but what's much more important to know if your ad is visible or not. And funny-wise, this is not just true for the brands. Of course, they have the brand impact they want to measure through at the beginning. I would say sometimes just pure CPM campaigns be seen actually. In the next part, basically, then was about CTRs. I want to ensure and I try to measure the efficiency of my campaigns through clicks and basically CTRs. But then, of course, it's also about something like completed videos. It's about something like conversions in the end. So how many test drives am I going to basically sell? How many people have really seen my ad? How much of my video have they seen? Should I follow up with a second offer and stuff like that? And the key for everything, maybe brand impact or maybe viewability or maybe performance, is of course viewability. So pre-bid solutions, there are established providers in the environment, you know them all. It's something like in Mode, something like a Metrix, something like an IAS, for example, or Double Verify. Those are the big names worldwide. You have to follow and you should basically talk to. And either as a big agency trading desk, I have my direct contract already, or what I look for today, also as a big brand, I want to ease the booking of viewable impressions. So in the past was about deals, I would say data-driven inventory bundled. In the future will be all pre-bid basically, where you define based on certain standards like MRC 52, for example, what kind of inventory you want to buy to ensure that your message reaches the right user. And this is also related, of course, to the point to make everything measurable. In the end, it's about reporting, it's about integration with all those partners. I slightly spoke about already the deal business. So this is something we have seen also at the beginning. We started with open auction. We just tried to fill inventory. And this was always about non-guaranteed deals. So RTB at the beginning, there was already the idea to also realize, I would say, complex setups. In reality, what we did at the beginning, with very few exceptions, we focused mainly on the open auctions. Simply say, okay, no one guarantees for a certain amount of inventory. Of course, this is quite tough for the demand side for the brands. How much inventory can I really reach? What is the final price I'm going to pay? And this is why we think, and we see also on our side, that private deals, although sometimes at the moment or over the last 1 to 2 years, they meant basically that you need to communicate a little bit more with your DSP, with your partner, or with the supplier side directly. Basically, we see that it really makes sense to work on deal base, not just to enable something like programmatic guaranteed and speak about fixed prices, but most important also to bundle very, very valuable inventory plus additionally, of course, data. So data, this is really what we see already in the market. Quite often today, audience data, as is not just shared within the complete, I would say, RTB chain, The publisher still needs to have control about what kind of data is shared. The advertiser wants to ensure that the right audience is hit, basically. So something like, I would say, not just DMP integrations, but also direct deal business. PMP is a very important part of the whole ecosystem today. And then just some points, of course, usability. So usability, why? This is something I think was easy at the beginning, let's say 6 to 8 years ago, was easy to go to the market and just say, okay, my platform is easy to use. Why? Because the biggest platforms we had in the market, just to remember the old Google products, for example, they were not usable. They were quite technical, it was too much for a lot of people in the industry. So this is why a lot of companies really focus a lot on, I would say, the UX design, basically, to make the setup of campaigns and management basically as easy as possible. So usability is very important still, and also flexibility. So it needs to support any kind of your, I would say, bidding strategy. What's also very important, of course, speaking about real-time bidding, you would be surprised how many companies in the programmatic space still don't provide real-time data. Sometimes still you need to wait for hours. There are some platforms which opened later on only to RTB, where sometimes you still have once a day fresh updated data. So real-time information, real-time insights, basically one of the most important points we see today still on the demand side. And then one thing you also need to keep in mind from our point of view, and that's also what we see as a feedback from Training Desk we work with a lot in our brands, the service layer. It sounds a little bit strange because you could think that today it's so easy. You have a platform which can do everything. You have all the channels, it's easy to set up because there's standards and so on, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's different. It is a very complex environment. The DSPs sometimes are overloaded, I would say, with capabilities. So you can do whatever you want. But what should you do? How should you proceed to optimize? How to set up the campaign? How to basically optimize the delivery, how to generate insights, meaningful insight into the reporting data you get. It's not just about data, it's about information. And from our point of view, service is one of the important layers today. It simply means it's easy to get access to a platform with 1,000 features, but I think it only makes sense if someone explains you what you need of those features, what you should go for, what you should focus on, and get very detailed training about it to get an expert. And otherwise, basically, it's not easy to basically master your campaigns. So the service layer for sure is very important. And then from the today, I would say from the now, switching to the future already. So in the future, what we see, as discussed, I think so at the very beginning, it is a little bit in the direction where we think that based on everything we have seen in quite short time, if you think back, something like 10, 15 years, it's not much time. This is the fastest technical development we have ever seen, I think so. Digital advertising is really increasing in span, but also getting more complex with all the standards around. So we know that from, let's say, this year on, next year on, while most platforms pretty get the same when it comes to capabilities, access to inventory, it's not exclusive anymore. Also on the supply side, with the header bidding issues and stuff like that. So in the end, basically, we were overcoming technical issues. And this is also what you need to focus on. It's not just about technical features anymore. It is about to provide quality solutions. And what we mean here is basically that what we see is in the market already today, it is very important for the demand side to offer, for example, APIs, because there are, again, I would say some like very specialized companies in the market trying to connect not just R2B, but also like direct closed markets together to add some insights, add data, add machine learning, for example, add meter interfaces. This is something we see for sure at the moment. So basically connectivity, here we mean that a lot of companies we know basically, and also Training Desk, move in the direction, so okay, instead of having just like 5 or 6 DSPs, which are forwarded from my brand, coming to my platform, for example, I'm kind of forced to use because there's a very special relation. We know that it needs to get easier to use the DSP, which enables any certain value in the end. And the idea here is simply to say, okay, based on APIs, which are available anyway, maybe like booking APIs on the demand side to optimize certain steps, or reporting for the real-time reporting, we see it gets more and more important really to be in a status where any kind of solution can be plugged into the DSP. So it's not just about, I would say, something like customizable, something like algorithms or stuff like that. It's really, there's an external system tracking a lot of data across DSP. The idea is that there's one single interface on top of the DSPs. I think this is not just a big dream, as it was like 5 to 6 years ago on the basically agency side. It becomes reality. So the idea is really to say that we are in a situation where we can be plugged into any kind of solution. Maybe for advanced data, enriched insights, BR reports, maybe for a meter DSP or whatever. This is something we see already what is happening. It's not just about to basically be again someone in a chain of communicators, but someone to enrich the already existing infrastructure. So this is based on APIs, and this is mainly about the meter systems we already see. And then, of course, I think the biggest part, because beside the technical things we have seen, again, technical things can easily be adopted by any other platform. This is something we see over the years. This will happen again and again. It's not easy to maintain a technical advantage, I would say, over more than 1 or 2 years. Basically, it is not about technique anymore. It's not about infrastructure. It's not about real-time bidding. It's not about APIs. It's not about meter systems or BR reports or whatever. Specialists are all around. Everything can be copied today. Of course, you always have an advantage if you're long in a market, for example, when it comes to mobile cookieless environments and so on. So there's a lot of stuff to be solved. But if you are in the environment for quite long, I think this is already the best starting point. But what we see, what is most important from our point, beside the connectivity in the future and the omnichannel position, for example, it's to talk about true value. So based on the transparency we see already and the need for transparency, the idea is really that you need a DSP, which is not just a technical platform to enable access to quantity. It is about having a partner on your side with dedicated support, someone who wants to share knowledge with you, but also learn from you. It's a mutual process, of course, and provide real value. So this is something we see. So everything we see already in the future, it's more about quality than quantity, actually. The times of providing a pure technical platform with access to huge reach and do whatever you want, in the direction of, okay, let me know what you need. We will help you to get there. This is basically what we see. This is the future of the DSP. So I think true value and becoming a true partner, basically, beside the pure connectivity, this is what we see is the pure future and the real future for a DSP. And I think, to be honest, hopefully in time, this is everything I want to share with you guys.
We were doing quite well in time. Thank you, Lars. I think this was a huge chunk of information dumped on our audience. Thanks a lot for listening. We hope it was structured enough for you to get the most important intakes. And now join us at the LiquidM Cabanas. So after all, we are doing the summer Adtech virtual event. So, and let's start with our Q&As. Feel free to ask any questions, whether it was on the topics that were covered today in the presentation, or if it's something that just came to my mind and maybe was missed by us. We will be very happy to read your questions and answer them. Actually, we have one already that we have from like the middle of the presentation. I'm gonna read it up and then we'll come up with an answer live in the real time, you know, like the reporting on DSPs. What does a DSP look for in an SSP now and in the future, and what levels of transparency are expected?
Okay, so if I get it right with the question, what we as a DSP request from supply side partners, right? I mean, there are so many points. So first of all, it starts with daily operations. So you need to ensure that you have someone you can reach in time, not just to troubleshoot, but also, for example, to extend to new formats, to really ensure that everything is fully aligned on both sides. when it comes to yeah, as I said, daily operations. More important when it comes to transparency, I think it's really that any kind of data which could be interesting for the brand, actually, yeah, for the final people in front of the screen using the programmatic chain. This data has to be as transparent as possible. Speaking, for example, about domains, speaking about bundle IDs, for example, in the past was quite easy, I would say, just to open access to SSP and say, okay, here, please, publisher, set up your inventory bundles, for example, name them as you want. So this is missing transparency. It doesn't help you to get traffic, which is called network one or whatever. So this is nothing the brand really wants to get. So, I mean, when it comes to transparency, first point of view, from my point of view, is really basically transparency about the environment. Then, of course, transparency also about what kind of service could be available around like deal packages. There needs to be a proof that the data bundled in certain deals, for example, is kind of proven data. It needs to be, in terms of transparency, about it could be some like keywords shared to support for brand safety exclusions, for example. So just from the pure supply side, I would say everything what is related to, let's say, the final buy price, just to say, okay, it would be great to be in a position where in the future, not just with selected partners, as we started, for example, with Smart, but also with other supply partners we don't have more than a normal buying relationship with, to be able to provide insights into the complete funnel, I would say, from the first request about what kind of data was shared, and second, then, of course, where did the money go? This is really what will help the big brands and trading desks to allocate more to your inventory. As more you share, as more value you have, basically, as more we can provide. This is basically my understanding here.
Yeah, and maybe a little thing to add from my side, since I'm sometimes overseeing and looking into how our supply deals with the connections. So in the end of the day, it really in the SSP, we'll look for whatever will allow us to provide a better solution to the advertisers. So it a lot depends on what our advertisers are looking for. Whenever we talk down to the basic as the geos or certain formats that they're serving. So if our clients are looking for premium video inventory, that's what we're gonna request from an SSP.
Yeah, and then of course, just to add here, totally right, Tata. Thanks a lot for adding this. Then of course, speaking not just about, I would say, technical targetings like geo, for example, information, something like operation system version, whatever helps to build something on our side or then on the trading desk side or meter DSP side, which could be shared within the complete funnel. But additionally, of course, again, audience data. So if there's data to be shared with our clients in the end, we don't have an interest to track it. I think as a German DSP actually born in the German market, we have to be, of course, and it's also our interest, as you know, but we have to be like 100% GDPR compliant. So we are not going to use data and track it and try to build models on top, whatever. It's more first, I would say at the beginning, is about the insights for the buy side, actually, for the trading desk or the direct brand, for example. And the second step later on could be that they want to come back to you as a SSP or then directly to the publisher and build PMPs. But first, they need to understand what kind of inventory and audience they buy. So today we still speak a lot about I would say, the inventory itself. So the impression, but it's not just about the environment, it's also about the user. And I think there's something which needs to be considered, especially in such a kind of GDPR compliant environment we live in.
Thank you. And then we actually have two more questions. I think this is perfect for us to finish on time. So the next question, in your mind, what do you see as the main USP or competitive differences will be between DSPs both now and perhaps in the future?
Yeah, I really think, yeah, complex. I tried to make it short. I think this is what I tried with by far too many words, I guess, so to explain. This is really the mix of value, so value and service, actually. So it is nice to have the platform and to have everything and to have APIs and connectivity and whatever, but what you need is really a strong partner who helps you to get through this jungle. It gets more and more complex. We will have the next OpenRTB versions. We're going into a world of cookie-less environment, IDFA less environment, at least on the I would say, App Store side, Apple side. So it will get more and more complex. And of course, you need someone who understands what he's doing and who's also willing to share it with you. Yeah? So knowledge sharing, this is quality from my point of view. And in the end, it's not just about to make a quick money and say, okay, we sell you some consultancy for 1K a day or whatever. This is really about to build a trustful partnership where you get someone on the buy side you can fully trust about the technical understanding, but keeping complexity away from you. Yeah? Just let you know how to set up, how to run in a best environment. This is about quality. It's about the tools to ensure that you buy the right inventory and the users you want to have. And then basically just a quality partner who helps you through the support and service layer. This is still something, it's nice to get a DSP for free or bidder for 250 bucks a month or whatever. Yeah. But in the end, what should you do with it? So you will fail, not always. Yeah. If your case is easy, you won't fail. It's easy, but we see already it gets more and more complex. It's more and more about efficiency, especially in the last 6 months. What we have seen, 4 to 6 months, actually, this is the direction it goes. It means you need to have a trustful partner with dedicated premium service. Yeah? So share knowledge, go in the direction of quality instead of just quantity. Real-time reporting is nice. What's I think much nicer from my point of view is someone who explains you what you should look on. Yeah? So quality over quantity for sure.
And now the very last one, and we have to answer it quite quickly. What about the use of universal ID solution according to the nearest cookie apocalypse? That was hard to pronounce.
To be honest, I think this is not universal ID, but the complete cookieless environment plus IDFA. I think this is worse for a complete session. I think it's nothing you can easily answer. Yeah? You need to follow the complete process at the moment. So there is need for sure to find solutions, but we should always keep in mind that I think in the end, this is also what the brands look for. It always needs to be a GDPR and data and privacy policy compliant for sure. So technical solutions are nice, but to overcome basically the interest of the final user will have not anyone. Yeah? So it's nice to ensure, and there will be solutions that you can continue with something like frequency capping and so on. It's nice to use certain kind of targetings. In the end, true value is always if you're close to your audience, if you're close to, I would say, the final user of your products, for example, and the person you want to reach. So let's not just ensure to use whatever we need because of privacy laws or whatever, but also let's follow basically the interest of the user. That's what I would say here. And then actually, I don't know if we have a dedicated track over the complete Adtech Summit about the privacy related things, not sure. But if you want to continue to discuss the topic, just reach out to us, and then pretty happy to hop on a call about it.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect note to maybe wrap it up. Thank you for all your questions and also for the attention throughout this session. And yes, if there are any questions that will pop up in your mind afterwards, just drop us a line on any of the available channels. We are always happy to provide any knowledge or expertise that we can share. Thank you very much. And then see you tomorrow for the native session.
Hopefully, you're welcome. Ciao, guys.